Hi, therapist friends. I love emotionally focused individual therapy, EFIT. Using it, learning it, teaching it has transformed my individual therapy practice and has also strengthened my relational work. And I think it may well do the same for you. In this little video, I wanted to talk you through the key macro intervention in EFIT, the EFIT Tango, and I wanted to do it sharing a specific, if fairly simple case example so that if you're brand new to EFIT, you can get a feel for how EFIT looks and feels in the room when we're using it. So, the EFIT Tango is the macro intervention that emotionally focused individual therapists will endeavor to use in pretty much every session in some form. These five basic moves, and where we have a roadmap for therapy that consists of the stages we move our clients through: stabilization, restructuring, and consolidation. We think about the Tango as the fully kitted out expedition vehicle that we jump into to drive along the roadmap in therapy. So, this gives us what we need to help our clients move through the process of therapy in each and every session. And it's just these five basic moves. So, to apply these, let's consider the example of maybe a typical client, Frank, who presents with depressive symptoms. In move one of the EFIT Tango, we mirror and reflect Frank's present process. What this might look like in an initial session is asking Frank to tell us about his experiences of depression, listening as he describes the way depression unfolds for him. When it hits, he retreats to his bed, he stops doing the things that he usually does, and he notices his mood sink. As his mood sinks, he tells himself negative things about how he's functioning, how he's doing, and what his life means. And as he listens to those negative thoughts, he becomes increasingly withdrawn and secluded in his life. And we listen and we reflect this back to Frank. So, Frank, what I'm hearing is the way this goes is that when depressive thoughts come and you're not even maybe sure quite just yet exactly what activates these, you find yourself responding by pulling away from your life. And the more you pull away, the more alone and depressed you become. Have I got that right? In move two of the Tango, we move into affect assembly and deepening. And this is where the emotionally focused part of emotionally focused individual therapy really comes into its own. Drawing on Magda Arnold's emotion assembly work, we pull together the parts of Frank's emotional experience to both inform and validate him. Someone wonderful once said, anything mentionable is manageable. By organizing Frank's emotional experience around depression, all the elements of it, and giving words to them, we help Frank get working distance from his depressive experience and see the edges of it so it becomes more manageable. This is insight-based change in this move two of the Tango. Organizing brings relief and freedom to the nervous system. And so you can see here on this diagram the elements of emotion listed, and there are many different versions of names for these, but here we've got trigger, perception, body, meaning, and action. And so if we were working with Frank, asking questions and assembling his experience around depression, we might end up with something like this to feed back to him after several minutes of going back and forth. So, Frank, what I'm hearing is that anytime you receive negative feedback at work, because your work is so valuable to you, something happens deep inside of you. You have this immediate feeling of worthlessness, this immediate feeling that your value is somehow decreased by these statements. And when that happens, Frank, that feeling turns into emotion. Deep down, you're telling me it's something like sadness, but on the surface, it's more like frustration, irritation with yourself and the world around you, and a sense of the energy draining out of you, exhaustion, depletion. And when you feel those things, Frank, a whole lot of perceptions or thoughts come along too. You have thoughts about yourself. I'm not good enough at this. I'm worthless. I never meet others' expectations. I never measure up. And you have thoughts about others too. My colleagues don't value me. They're cold. They're hard. They're indifferent. And then these thoughts also show up in your body, Frank. You find your energy draining. You find yourself feeling tired. You find yourself with little impetus or passion to do the things you usually enjoy. And this impacts your behavior. You withdraw to bed. The more you withdraw, the more depressed and alone you feel. And around we go in a circle. When we move to move 3 of the tango, we see where we are choreographing engaged encounters. And these encounters in EFIT might be with the therapist, and this can happen especially early on in our work when a client says something that has emotional resonance, and we heighten the moment by just having them say it to us and then processing the impact of that disclosure for them. It might be an engaged encounter with a part of the self. Frank talking to his depressed self, or talking from a part of himself that is stronger to a part that is weaker or more afraid. Or it might be an engaged encounter with an imagined other, often an attachment figure, a parent, a close friend, a lover, sometimes someone who's relevant to the situation that the client is describing at the time. So for the purposes of our little exercise here, let's imagine that Frank's first engaged encounter is just with me, the therapist. As I feed back that cycle, I ask Frank, am I getting that right, Frank? Does that sound like an accurate description of your experience? And Frank says yes. And I ask him, what's it like to see that? As we assemble it together and we step back and look at it, what do you notice? And Frank tips his head, and with great sorrow he says, I just feel so sorry for that part of myself that gets stuck in there. And I feel the emotion come alive in the room. I feel his new, different, deeper feeling. And there's something strangely hopeful in that. Frank is connecting with a more vulnerable part of his experience that might have wisdom to lead him out of the dark cycle of depression. And so I invite him to linger with it a little longer by saying, wow, Frank, that's very beautiful to hear you say that. You feel so sorry for that part of yourself that gets stuck there. Could you look at me, please, and say that again? I feel sorry for the part of myself that gets stuck there. And Frank does. And he's experiencing his emotion in a new way in that moment. In move 4 of the tango, we process Frank's experience, that imagined encounter. And if we were doing this with an imagined other, like a parent, another attachment figure, we'd process the impact on the speaker, Frank, and on the listener. When we do what we just did in this imagined example, where Frank is making an encounter with the therapist, we can still process the impact on the speaker and the listener by asking about Frank's perceptions of this. So this might look and sound like, wow, Frank, what's it like to say that out loud right now? To acknowledge the sorrow you feel for the part of you that gets stuck in the depressive cycle. And Frank might tell us, it's weird in a way. It feels kind of nice to just own that, to just acknowledge the impact of it on me. I think I spend a lot of time trying to distract myself from it by going to sleep, by turning away from the feelings. It feels powerful to acknowledge that this makes me sad. And I say, yes, that's so beautiful. It's powerful to acknowledge the sadness. It's powerful to acknowledge the impact of this depression on you. And hey, Frank, when you share it with me, what do you see on my face? This is both an opportunity for a corrective experience and in early sessions, an opportunity for assessment. I'm hoping that Frank sees what I'm wanting so much to be there for him and for any of my clients, my compassion, my acceptance, my unconditional positive regard for him. And if he says, I see care on your face, or I see compassion, or you look interested, then that's great. And we can process that together. I'm glad you see that, Frank, because that's what I feel for you right now. I feel for that part of you that gets stuck there too. And I want to help you find a way out. But what if Frank says, I see contempt, or I see boredom, or I think you're probably thinking I'm an idiot? Even though it's not the ideal response, it's incredibly important from an assessment perspective because it tells me some more about Frank's model of self, how he sees himself, usually as a result of his attachment experiences, and his model of other, how he's experiencing me. And that's incredibly important information for me to work with. In the moment, if Frank says to me, you look bored, I'm not going to rush to contradict him and reassure him of my engagement or my care, because chances are his nervous system isn't ready to take that in anyway. But I can just validate him and be present with him in that moment. Wow, you take this big risk to share your sorrow about the depression with me, and what you see on my face is boredom. Gosh, that's a tough experience, isn't it? I wonder, Frank, does that happen for you in other places in your life when you try to share your more vulnerable emotion with people who are important to you? Do you ever have this experience of seeing them bored or unresponsive to what you're sharing? And I'm learning more about Frank's experience and some of the underlying perceptions or beliefs that might drive some of this depressive cycle for him. Then in move 5 of the tango, we integrate, validate, and EFIT therapists, we sometimes say celebrate what the client has done. Even if it's a small, early in therapy moment like the one we just imagined for our fictional client, Frank, we can still talk them through what they did in a way that shines a light on the most important pieces and has them leaving therapy with a sense of the progress and change that they're making and building upon over time. So in this example for Frank, if we imagine, to make it simpler, that he did see compassion and care on my face, then that move 5, feedback, might look and sound a little like this. Wow, Frank, look at what you just did in this session. You came in and we met for the first time and you were telling me about your experience of depression, how it's impacting your functioning, how it's robbing the joy from your life. And then we worked together to actually assemble the aspects of your emotional experience. And in doing that, you were able to see that while on the surface it drains your energy and frustrates you, deeper down you actually feel great sorrow at what depressed you misses out on when this depressive cycle comes. And for just a moment, Frank, you were able to connect with that sorrow and share it with me. And when you did, you felt a sense of relief, some sense of hope or good feeling that, hey, it's good to touch this. And maybe if I can feel and acknowledge this, I can find a way out. It was so beautiful to watch you do that, Frank. I want to help you have more experiences of that, where you organize your emotional experience here in therapy, make sense and meaning of it, and use it in adaptive ways to support your well-being. And so that's how we move around the EFIT Tango. I hope you found this little video helpful. And if you are interested in learning more about EFIT, consider signing up for my EFIT supervision group starting soon Details are in the link below. I would love to welcome you there. We'll follow an actual client through the process of emotionally focused individual therapy, reviewing tape of that client's work and learning together from what we see. If you'd like to learn more, I'd love to welcome you to EFIT Supervision. Thanks for watching. Bye.